Welcome to the Super Coach Show. Today I am super excited because I have a legend on the line, the one and only Michael McCrudden. And I'm going to go into a nice background of what his man has accomplished. But before I do, I want to kick things off with a quote. First and foremost, Mike, thanks for being on the show.
I'm so happy to be here, man. It's exciting.
Yes. Super excited as well. What is a quote or a mantra that keeps you on track?
It all comes down to every day you're hustling and, hard work and persistence. That's the game. It's a grind, but you can have a big victory at the end of the day. So just keep plugging away.
Yes, that's it. Perfect and totally aligned with what I believe in. Your channel is super close to 2 million subscribers. And I would imagine that like when you're traveling or even out in public, people recognize you. So let's say if someone meets you on the street and they're like, man, you look so familiar. What do you do? How do you typically respond to that?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I play a bit of a character. I'm a bit more of a showman on my show. And then when people catch me out, so right now I'm in Whistler, BC. So I got stopped at the airport. I got stopped on the plane.
Wow.
And then I stopped twice at the hotel by people going, I know you. Or they're like, I watch your videos every day. So it's pretty interesting, but I'm not the guy on my YouTube show when you see me. I'm usually, hey, what's going on? Oh, thanks so much. Versus like everyone expects me to be the animated host that I play online,
Similar. I'm a bit introverted. And when people see me on video, I do a lot of seminars like, oh my God, why aren't you that energized? And I'm like, I'm pretty calm. I'm low-key, I'm more of an introvert, but when they meet me, they expect me to be jumping up and down passionately.
And I'm usually doing something really clumsy, like getting lost or not. Like I'm playing, I couldn't find my seat and I went all the way to the back. So then when people were boarding, I was trying to push forward. And I'm like a 6'3", 240-pound guy. So I was just looking like a klutz. And I guess when people see you on screen, they expect you to be this, like a celebrity and polished and not a normal human being.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Your channel before they were famous is actually one of my favorite YouTube channels. And I think I watch just about every episode. I'm like a rabid dog. Every time you put up a new video, I get a notification. I go and watch it. Even if I don't know the person, I've always been very fascinated with people that grow tremendous followings, become influencers and experts in their respective field, especially with musicians. I love watching musical documentaries because you want to know how their life was prior to the fame. Most people see a celebrity like an overnight celebrity. This person came out of nowhere, but most times you soon realize that they went through a lot to be where they are today. And I'm just super curious, like based on the countless amount of people that you featured, do you recognize any specific traits in individuals that allow them to break through?
There's a few exceptions now with online stars I'm going to leave out. But for the most part, the credited artists that we're celebrating have been doing this for 10 years at least. The typical story is, it started out at 10, 15, and it wasn't until 25 or 30 that they really cashed in and made a name for themselves. So, that's what drew me to the series in the beginning, because myself, I'm like, how do I make it? And how do I do something? What obstacles did they overcome? So it's great to see how it's like a persistence from birth almost to watch how long it takes. But with this online fandom, there are some kids now doing it overnight, which is very strange. I don't know if that'll last. I don't know if that'll last, but anyway, typically, an artist's journey lasts about a decade.
Wow. That's a great insight. And of course, as I was watching your amazing channel's growth and just admiring what you've been doing throughout the years, I've been doing research on you as well. And I guess you have a similar story where you've been in show business and you've really spent a lot of time behind the camera with acting experience and modeling experience and developing your skills. So then when you launch your channel, people would say like, oh my God, this guy, Michael McCrudden, he's so charismatic. He's so funny. He's so well-spoken. He's so great on camera. This guy came out of nowhere, but you spend close to decades honing this craft of communication.
Yeah. It was. I always was a YouTuber, and I didn't really get on YouTube until 2015. I was always playing around with it. I was always uploading and doing stuff. I was like, I think the days of just being a writer are over. I think the days of just being an actor, it's not stable enough. I got to know how to write and produce and host and act. And I certainly can't model anymore, but that would have helped. But I got to know how to do a bunch of things. I went to university, I went to college, and got as much experience as I could. And it wasn't until I was like, oh my God, I'll be a YouTuber, that all those tricks that I put in my basket really allowed me to grow and accelerate as fast as I did, because I was all the skill sets were there. It was part of my 10-year journey.
That's amazing. And when you initially started, before they were famous, did you foresee the level of growth you have now?
Like a lot of success, I think, is inherent belief in yourself. So, not to be boastful, but I'm like, I can get 1 million subscribers. I didn't know if I could go beyond that, but I felt, I'd been around YouTube enough and seen other people, and I was like, I think I could do this. But what was the question?
When you were initially launching the channel, did you foresee it to be as huge as it is now? At the time of this video, it's close to 2 million subscribers, and it's growing exponentially.
And almost 1 million daily views. Yes and no. I knew I had a concept that would last the test of time. I knew it's something I could do almost daily, and there was a lot of security and ways to grow with the platform with it. So I knew I could get to 1 million. Everything now is just icing on the cake moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And from an outsider looking in, I feel like a big secret of your success is your ability to engage people. As a content creator myself, I understand that, you can have great content and phenomenal stories, but if you don't have the personality to keep someone engaged for more than 5 minutes, you're not going to grow a channel. You're not going to grow a following. You're not going to create a mission. So I would love to know, is your way of communicating and presenting the content, have you honed that throughout the years? Because I think that's one of the magic superpowers that you have yourself.
That's so nice of you. I remember, especially early on when I was starting out, like from 0 subscribers to 500,000, 1 million. There was lots of bits of me. To the audience, I was a mystery, right? But I would be like, oh, I went through a similar circumstances. Or like, I know how hard it is to make it in Canadian show business. So I was baiting the audience with like, there's more to come from me in the future. But I never made when I started out, the thing was everyone on YouTube was all about them. It was all vloggers and bedroom makeup artists and me.
Yeah.
And I really was the first guy who wasn't a corporation to make it about everyone else.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm curious, because you've spent a lot of time doing research, but also connecting and interviewing some very, very influential people in this world. Now, have you formed some friendships and networks among some of the people?
Yeah, totally. And that was my goal for this year. 2017 was about reaching out and getting, because on YouTube, you can't sit still too long. You've got to evolve, and you got to keep people, shocked with how progressive and entertaining your stuff is. So the goal was to get more artist interaction. And I've got some big ones lined up. But I just did I think I've done about 20 or 30 collabs this year.
Wow.
YouTubers, tons of Instagram star interviews. These kids, Ayo and Teo, they're like 5 million on Instagram for dancing, and now they have a rap song, Rolex.
Rolex song, yeah.
They're so good, these kids. And they're telling me, they're like, man, we grew up watching before they were famous.
Wow.
Which makes me laugh, because I'm like, I think I've only been doing this like 2.5 years, but everything's moving so fast to them. They were just growing up a year ago, That's
amazing. That is amazing. Yeah, because I mean, you're definitely generating legend status because of all the videos you have on YouTube. And, you know, obviously not just me, everyone's fascinated by certain individual people, especially if you're their fan, you buy their albums, you go to their concerts, you want to know what was their origin. You know, just like every superhero movie has an origin story. And I think when you see these amazing superstars and you see their humble beginnings, it really fascinates you.
Yeah, I've always, when I went to even growing up, I would always go to the biography section. It was just a natural, you know, you can learn something from those you admire. And then I idolized Jim Carrey, and his life story is the best one to ever be told. From, you know, he was homeless and destitute and depression, and his father was a failed, you know, guy in show business. So, you know, I hung on to that story and invested so much time in it throughout my life. I guess, yeah, it just made sense that I became the guy to tell these stories because, I don't know, I've always been very interested.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Jim Carrey, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the guy, fascinated with him ever since I first heard about him in the 90s, watched all of his movies and even watched a lot of biographies about him. You know, recently he's taken a bit of a turn to discussing more spiritual concepts, and he's not as much in Hollywood blockbusters. He's not performing as much. He's more just evolving like everyone does. And I was curious on what your take of him is now that he's taken on a different persona.
There was a lot of requests for me to make an after they were famous on Jim Carrey, and with him being my idol, I couldn't take the bait. I wouldn't, you know, and the world's getting so small that I'm finding out most of these stars are watching my videos. So I can't really do that to my man, Jim. But I was really interested to see these viral videos of him on the red carpet. Certainly he's very much into his spirituality and I don't know the name of the thinking and the leaders he's following, but he's definitely passionate about it. I also question though if it was a bit of PR for the Jim and Andy film, which was a much, you know, Andy Kaufman was a guy who took performance to the next level and was like, is this real or is this not real?
Sorry, Mike, the volume is
I'll talk louder. Sorry. So I wondered if those red carpet appearances were a bit of Andy Kaufman. He's like, how much eyes can I get on myself? Because I am promoting a film, and that it is show business. So maybe that's just the big Jim Carrey fan in me saying he hasn't lost it. But who knows?
Yeah, I don't think he's lost it. I think he's a brilliant man, and I you know, to have that level of comedic genius, you have to be very strategic. So I really think he's on top of his game, if you ask me.
Yeah. No, and I was in a film with Jim, Dumb and Dumber 2. So I got to watch it. I got to watch him in action for about 3 days. I sat right behind him. I was like an extra. And to see his genius in play, what he can do with just sitting in a chair and improvising gags and interacting with his co-star, it was clearly a genius at work with what he does.
Yeah, no, I'm really fascinated with that because obviously there's a level of, let's say, studying someone's art, watching their videos, or even interviewing them from a distance. But there's another element of connection where they're in your presence. And I guess I would love to know that, even a lot of listeners, being in Jim Carrey's presence and witnessing that comedic genius in the flesh. What'd you notice about him that kind of stood out amongst all the other actors on set?
I think when he's in character and he's there to perform, he really embodies a 14-year-old and the slapstick body humor. So a good example of it was we were in an auditorium with people, so a lot of people were watching them even during their downtime when they weren't filming. But Jim would be like having a chat and having a laugh with the crew and cast. Anyway, at one point he walked by a television that had like a digital screensaver, and it was like one of those like Star Wars, like the stars are flying past you. You know, it's a screensaver everyone's seen. It's just like stars in the distance. Anyway, Jim, not performing for anyone really, just walks by this television, and all of a sudden he starts shaking and starts pretending like this screensaver is sucking him in. And then he like composes himself and has a little chuckle to himself. and you can see him go, oh, that wasn't a bad idea. And then he just carries on. And I'm like, he's not working, but he's brainstorming, and he's Jim Carrey, you know?
Yeah. That's amazing.
So I can only imagine
material.
Yeah, he everything he interacts with physically, he like comes up with a little idea for the future.
I love that. Yeah, because I feel like even being a comedian or thinking funny is the ability to look at the world through the lens of comedy. And about a month ago, I set a personal challenge for myself to do a night of stand-up comedy. And I have no goal of being a stand-up comedian, but I feel that's one of the hardest communication performances that you have. So just preparing for that and looking at things in a funny way and writing down my set, I feel like just by doing one show, it made me a funnier person, because who I became in the process helped my videos, my seminars, even just hanging around people in social situations. I'm a lot more funnier just from doing that one show.
Wow. Congrats to you. You got the monkey off your back. And I believe stand-up comedy is the toughest of the artistic pursuits.
Would you ever do stand-up comedy?
I wrote stand-up comedy. I went to the club and I said, yeah, this probably isn't for me. And it's the one thing I've streaked for a job. I've been in crazy situations, but stand-up was the one thing I said, you know what? I told myself, I said, I couldn't do this for 10 years.
Wow. So
it wasn't for me.
Got it. Yeah. And, speaking of things that are coming your way, like obviously 2017 has been a phenomenal year for you. And I just see massive growth coming your way, passing 2 million subscribers, 1 million page views a day. What is your future goals? If we want to, let's say it on this show, who does Michael McCrudden want to be remembered by?
Wow. I remember getting into this, and when the wheels started moving, I wanted to be the Ryan Seacrest of YouTube. So, I don't know if that means I'm going to transition to something like a radio show or a breaking news entertainment format kind of show. I know that I'm evolving the show that I do currently to be more less nostalgic and more trending news, just the way things are going. But I think you're going to see me on the platform and probably other platforms for the next, couple of years. Because basically we live in a generation now where everyone's famous or becoming famous. So there's no shortage of work for me.
Got it. That's a massive goal, being the Ryan Seacrest of YouTube, and also at the same time, having multiple variations of what you do. I think that's an amazing thing. Before they were famous, before they were dead, after they were famous. After it's amazing to have the variety of it, and that speaks to different people's curiosities.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that's only thing I'd love to address as well, because something happens in the media, you're like one of the first people to report it, even faster than TMZ sometimes. And I think it's an amazing act, because it's like, let's say, recently a rapper named Little Pete passed away, right? I have no idea who the guy is. I've never listened to his music, but it was all these people doing homages for him. But I went directly to your Before They Were Dead, I believe. And I watched it, and I thought, was like, this is just so great. I connect with him, and I know that maybe I didn't like his music as much, but his personal story was fascinating. And it is very interesting, because obviously, people like me who highly respect you doing that, so you educate me on someone who I would have never heard of before. But then you also get a lot of backlash. Why are you making money off his death? Or it's too soon, too early. I personally think that's bullshit, because obviously you're just reporting the news, you're saying the facts. So I would love to get your take on that, just being lightning quick, but at the same time getting the backlash of people saying too soon.
Yeah, Before They Were Dead is now titled Before They Were Gone, just to lighten the impact of the reality of the series. It's always I've been doing that for 2 or 3 years. I think it started out with like Rob Ford or someone in Toronto, my local Toronto, and being on a news platform or where a trending platform, being the first up to bat on something that people want to know about is pretty vital to success. And I know I do a really good job at I don't share a lot of personal opinions I'm never there to bash or I just did a video on Charles Manson. I didn't say a bad thing about the guy. And there's plenty of bad stuff I should be saying, but I didn't, right?
Yeah.
So that's just the way it is. Like, what's an obituary for? What they've been, and then so I had to address the fans or the negative feedback saying, yo, too soon, and how dare you make money off it? And I'm like, well, let's just take a look at Walter Cronkite announcing the death of JFK.
Yeah.
This is the way it's always been. But just for anyone who is listening and is butthurt, all the money from the Little Peep video went to Little Peep's label. So it went to Little Peep and his family.
Oh, wow. So, very generous of you.
Oh, it wasn't it just happened because I put a lot of video clips. I don't I use a lot of video clips in my videos to tell the story accurately. And a lot of times then, labels or other creators will step in and take and claim the videos. But for me, it's, I got to do the best justice to tell the story. And it doesn't mean it's always going in my pocket.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's really kind of you. And, I want to elaborate on this subject as well, because perhaps a lot of people are watching and they say, Michael McCrudden is my hero. He's superhuman. The fact that you go on YouTube and be himself and create this amazing following, but I'm scared to create a video because if I put something out there, I'll get haters and I'll get negative comments. I'm not a good speaker. I'm not very charismatic. I'm fat. I'm old. I'm young. So obviously having this many eyeballs on you, you get your fair share of haters and negativity. So if someone has a big fear of that, perhaps they're starting to face it by putting themselves out there. What advice do you have for someone?
Well, that's the beauty of YouTube, because it's so accepting of flaws, and people want to see reality. Now, like, I'm a very polished host in my presentation, but I get sweaty and I get tired and I have bad days, and I include that in my video. Like, I haven't slept all week, but we got to get this done. So if you're someone who's just new to the game or you have your insecurities, well, that's what makes you different from, the typical, local news presenter. You should embrace those oddities. The best example I can think of is Ethan and Gila from H3H3. You would never have seen them on mainstream media as hosts or news correspondents, just from like the way things were. But I don't think anyone else has a bigger fan base because of their, oddities. I believe he has a Twitch situation or whatever it is. I don't know. But they're not your typical host, and that's what makes them as fantastic and admired and loved and cherished as they are. So be yourself, and whatever's different about you, use that to your advantage.
Love that. Whatever's different about you, use that to your advantage and be yourself. Great advice. And, coming to the end of this interview, actually so many questions and you answer so generously, but is there a certain subject I didn't ask you about or a certain type of topic you would like to address while we have you on here that we didn't go into?
Yeah, one thing comes to mind. I get a lot of negative feedback from haters saying like, "Oh, Michael McCrudden gets everything wrong." That would just be so that label came from a few videos in which the people that I documented didn't like what was being presented or what was being said. So for them to say, "Oh, it's wrong," is a quick way to dispel, the factualities of what it is. Now, I didn't go toe to toe or make a follow up to get into any kind of fights, but just when people say something's wrong doesn't mean it is wrong. It's not the narrative they want out there.
Yeah,
and there have been errors along the way. My show goes through me, goes through editing. Sometimes I get help with writing. So a bunch of people do touch it. And I have made a few mistakes or certain information on the internet isn't completely accurate.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I don't think there's anyone working as hard as me in this genre. So that's all.
Yeah. That's a line that I use often. Prolific beats perfect. And you are one prolific dude. You're just putting out so much. Obviously, you're going to have some errors. You're taking imperfect action. If you waited for everything to be perfect, you'd be maybe producing 10% of what you do now.
Yeah, well, I think we do a real, like, I know I spend about 8 hours typically writing a script, then the editing's 4 hours, and then we do 7 at least a week. So, you know, that's, I'm putting together, there's 12 hours of writing every day.
Wow.
So, you know, yeah, and then you got your uploading and your social media and the hosting on top of it. So it's, you know, I don't know how I get it all done, but I somehow do.
Love it. Love it. No, I appreciate that. And I'm always getting your amazing content. So I really admire your hard work. And I know that you're this close to breaking 2 million subscribers. And I know you're going to celebrate with a tattoo. Is that right?
If it happens before December 1st, I told the subscribers that I have to get a tattoo somewhere on my butt of their picking. But I don't know, unless all of your audience go and subscribe. I feel like I'm going to be like 5,000 shy, and I'll have dodged a bullet.
Well, I'm going to really push this episode, get it edited, and just get it out there and just push it to all my followers because we want to see that tattoo on your butt.
It could be your name. If you tell them to make it your name, it could be the most voted thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I could die in peace. Awesome. Awesome. So Michael, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this interview. I want to acknowledge you because you are one of my heroes. I really appreciate what you do. You add so much value to the marketplace. And like I said, you know, your videos, all the hard work, all the effort, everything you do, I truly appreciate you.
Wow. That's so nice. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. So super simple. Go to Before They Were Famous, subscribe, and you'll see all the brother and sister channels. Subscribe to those as well. You will not be disappointed. If this is your first time hearing of Michael, you're going to become a lifelong fan of his.
Woo!
2 million,
buddy.
baby.
2 million, baby.